So I'm sitting here with my good friend and client, Lynne Griffin. You may know her from such films as Black Christmas, the original, the good one, from 1973, and such films as Curtain, Storm of the Century, and most recently in Thanksgiving and Priscilla, as well as many others. Welcome, Lynne. Nice chatting with you.
Nice seeing you too, Dominic. Happy New Year.
You too. You too. I know you've been really busy. We talked a little bit about that before we hit record, but we'll get to that towards the end.
Okay.
So first, I'd like to start off chatting about your upbringing, and I understand you were born in Toronto. And what first got you hooked, and what bonded you with the arts? What was your first inkling?
Well, first of all, my father, James Joseph Griffin, was a fashion photographer and used me for the diaper ads he used, or or the little ads where the kids show up in on a knitting pattern for sweaters. So he was a photographer. He actually won Canadian Photographer of the Year in 1966. And my mother was an actress who, when my father passed, she actually became an agent and has started her own agency here, which is called KG Talent. That when my mother passed away, my sister now runs and represents me. So, yeah, we are very much a kind of theatrical family. I think my dad, took photographs of me. I mean, embarrassingly, even, in diapers and stuff like that, that he would then show to prospective boyfriends once I hit that age of bringing them home to meet the folks. So it's always been. I started very young, obviously, as a child model, and then I went into. I did my first commercial, I think, when I was 10 for Five Roses Flour. Um, and then I did lots of commercials, and then I did a kids television show for many years called Drop In on Canadian television. And then I decided I wanted to be a theater actress. So I started auditioning for theater. I got into a very seminal production of a play called Leaving Home by David French, which ran for years. And we did it everywhere and we filmed it. And I ended up marrying that leading man. I tend to have a tendency to marry my leading man. I'm on my third one right now. Sorry.
Wow.
But yeah, so it's always been a part of my life, and certainly available. I mean, I think there was a time as a kid I was going, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? And then there came a point, especially when I started doing theater and being in front of live audiences, that I really, really loved it. And then I was at Stratford performing Shakespeare when I got the audition for Black Christmas.
Wow.
And that changed that trajectory that I wanted to do film.
Yeah. Now you were kind of born into the arts, but
Oh, yeah.
were you a fan of films? Like, did you watch them? Were there any specific genre that you
Oh,
were into?
oh, yeah. I mean, I had a fairly strict upbringing because I was a child actor. So there wasn't a lot of of social activity for me in terms of, having the friend. I mean, I did my basic, well, even not even high school, public school by correspondence. Um, but my and my mom and dad weren't particularly television watchers except for variety shows.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to remember, I guess as a kid, they took me to Mary Poppins and, 101 Dalmatians and those kind of things. But it wasn't until kind of later, I think I basically got hooked on Hitchcock very early. Um, and then, I've just been fascinated by film, not entirely in the last decade, but certainly like early on, I'm a real lover of classic films.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Hitchcock is the perfect gateway.
Yeah.
If you love
Oh,
cinema,
yeah.
it's only downhill from there.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the first film that I remember, a horror movie that really scared me, was called The Werewolf.
Mm.
And it was like the old one where, the change from the man to the werewolf wasn't that slick.
Right, right,
It just kind of all of a sudden got like furry. And then
right.
the other one was called The Time Machine.
Yeah,
And it was just on the other night. And it's when I guess he gets in the time machine and he goes backwards and his everything starts falling back to being a skeleton. That scared me.
yeah.
So I had a definite interest in horror films from early age. Also, my second husband was a cinematographer, so um, that led me to opening up a whole new world. And I moved to Los Angeles. I met all these great cinematographers, and um, it was all film, all the time, nothing but breakfast, lunch, and dinner film.
Right. Now, for a while, there really wasn't like a cinema industry in Canada. Like as you said, you went to LA. That's what actors had to do. If they wanted a career, they had
Yeah,
to go to California. When do you remember the film industry sort of becoming relevant in Canada?
I think it really started to have a boom when I left. I mean, it seemed funny that I had moved to Los Angeles to pursue my film career because I had done a movie here called Strange Brew, which had a kind of a fair, decent showing in the US as well as being huge in Canada. It started to really blossom. The Canadian film industry had always been big in Quebec, not entirely in English speaking Canada. But then it did sort of boom, and I realized I'd moved to LA, but I was doing theater, and I should go back to Canada where the film was happening. And that was kind of sort of mid to late 70s, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, and since that time, I mean, I think part of it was the difference between the American and Canadian dollar brought a lot of US production up here, which was great.
Yeah,
Um, I still think we have an identity problem as Canadians, that we see Big Brother down there making all these great films, and we're kind of still, making sure we sneak in a little hockey into every Canadian film we do. There's got
right.
to be a little hockey sequence. But so I think we still have a bit of an identity crisis, and um, I mean, it's active and was very active, thankfully, during the pandemic. We all kept working with, very strict protocols, but um, I, I don't know that, I don't know whether it's just always going to be in the shadow of US. Um, Not so much European, but definitely the US's filmmaking and cinema is a juggernaut. You can't deny that.
Yeah, yeah. All the big studios have their headquarters here, so I think that
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
has an
And I
effect.
mean, more and more, I mean, I know Guillermo del Toro has just built a new, or just taken over a warehouse as a new studio downtown in Toronto. And we have a lot of studios now, and it is active. Although a lot of the things, because we have difficult tax laws, they don't shoot in Toronto, but they shoot in all the little burgs that are outside of Toronto. So we go to Coburg, we go to Hamilton, we go to Pickering, we go to all these little towns
Yeah,
that have actually great looks. They're great for filming because they look like little old fashioned towns, which
yeah,
they are still.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Do you remember your first professional job, like whether it was theater or set? Do you remember, the feeling you had walking on your first day, saying, "I'm doing this. This is what I'm going to do for a living."
Well, because I did so much television as a kid. I mean, I worked a lot at the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, and there was a studio not far from where we lived that I had gone to for an audition for this little series called Drop In.
Mhm.
And at that time, I remember I had like a huge portfolio, like a like a scrapbook of everything I had done until that point, and all the pictures that my dad had taken. And without actually meaning to, I left the scrapbook behind. And so I guess the director got to look through everything, or, bless his heart, this guy took it up and went, well, I better look at what this kid's done. Anyway, so I got hired. So I did that for 5 years. So that was my first introduction into studio, although we did at that point go live to tape, which meant we performed the show live and then they taped it and it went to air live. So um, I'm kind of thinking, some of the studios that really, like when I was impressed when I was shooting a series here called Happy Town, and that set and studio was huge. I mean, it might have been what they call now Pinewood, but I don't know what it was called when it first opened. But yeah, I mean, I basically remember doing my first commercial, and because I had to fly in a harness, because I was supposed to be lighter than air. Um, I had a lot of funny firsts, and of course, Art Hindle from Black Christmas will tell you I had my first screen kiss there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a first. There's lots of things I remember as sort of like, wow, I've really landed.
So you've been acting so long, it basically just felt normalized because you did it from such an early age. Just felt like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, I still hate getting up at like, 4:30 in the morning for makeup and and traveling to set at that time. I mean, I think actually I dislike it more now the older I get. I like my little, cozy sleep in with my cats. So, yeah, I mean, but I'm still fascinated by it. I mean, I can rumble all the way in the car where they're driving me to work, but when I get there and I see everything, all the setup and the sets and the cameras and lights and everything and these enormous crews, I'm just, yeah, I'm home. I'm home.
Exactly.
And if my dad hadn't died when I was so young, I was very interested in photography. So I might have ended up being a still photographer, because and I'm still very interested in that and in visual art.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the times they all kind of go together, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's called motion pictures. So
yeah, yeah. They're just pictures that are moving.
exactly, exactly. Well, we should talk about Black Christmas. That's what most of your fans know you from, which you
Right.
did in 1974.
Yep.
This year's the 50th anniversary since the film
Coming
was
up.
released. I guess 51st since you made it. Um,
Right.
what do you
Hmm.
remember about how you got connected with Bob Clark and did you audition for it? Talk to us a
I
little.
did just yeah, just a regular audition. I mean, Claire Harrison didn't have a lot of lines, so um I think they did. I didn't meet Bob in the initial audition, but they did want to know how I felt about having a plastic bag put on my head. And I think, this story has become kind of apocryphal. I tell it all the time, but I said to them, well, I'm good because I'm a good swimmer, so I can hold my breath for a long time. And I had actually, in a couple of shows on the CBC, I was always playing victims of murder or rape, and so I did know how to play a dead body really good, to be able to keep your eyes open and not blink and not breathe. I
Yeah.
guess I
Yeah.
keep saying that's why I was hired, as opposed to, the good looks or the long hair or whatever it was. But, and
Well, maybe
also
they
I
saw your
was really,
portholio of you wearing the diapers, and they said she's
and
great at
I
every
guess
plastic.
it was. But
So it's
I think
fantastic.
too, I, I think too, I was sort of the perpetual virgin type. I looked very virginal, very sweet. Now I say I looked. I'm not saying that I wasn't,
Right.
but I looked that part. I definitely looked innocent, and so those are the kind of people you want to take down a peg, murder them,
Yeah.
hang them. I think I've been murdered more different ways than a lot of people on film. we counted them one time. We kind of started making a list of how many times I've died in
Wow.
different ways.
Wow. Do you remember what
Yeah.
the number was?
Oh, it was above, it was getting close to 20.
Wow.
Because I've even jumped out of a window of a high rise building for a mini series I did called I'll Take Manhattan back in the day. So and I sort of had to land splat on the, Bloor Street in Toronto in front of this fancy shop I was supposed to land. So yeah, and I've been drowned and I've been set on fire. I pretty much had it all, you
Wow.
know.
I
Oh
think
yeah, I
that,
was recently set on fire in Fahrenheit 451. I
wow.
got completely set on fire. That was cool.
You're still killing it.
I continue to kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been sawn in half yet.
Well,
So
there's still
that's
time.
still on my bucket list.
Still time, you never know. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe Eli Roth's next movie.
Yeah. Tell Eli Roth to kill me next time. Um,
But
but
yeah,
my real wish is to one day be the killer, to be the I'd like to play a sweet little old lady who's a serial killer.
that
So I
would be
keep putting it out there in the universe to say, I think we should have that, where she's so sweet and she lives next door. She invites you over for tea and cookies, and then she takes you down to the basement.
yeah, feed you to her cats.
Yeah, with my cats.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that'd be great. Well, you're going back to the death thing. Your death scene in Black Christmas. I think you had mentioned your character kind of had an innocent look, and I think you're right. I think that is an important opening to the film because you want if the innocent character's taken out first, it kind of sets up the tone of anybody's game. How many takes was your death? Like, do you remember how many takes your death scene was with the bag?
Oh, we were up there for quite a while. We were up in that attic with that, with me, Bob, Bert Junk, the cameraman, very, very skeleton crew, and of course the cat, Claude,
Mm-hmm.
the diva cat, who wouldn't behave or do anything that we wanted it to. But anyway, Bob made it work. But yeah, we were up there for quite a while. Um, I think there was like several days that we kept doing it because again, there was only, I guess, so much time available in a day before I started kind of getting a bit lightheaded and
Yeah.
uh, maybe hyperventilating or something. But Bob was very, very careful and very gracious and kept it actually funny all the time. Um, that the thing that I remember most about Black Christmas is Bob Clark keeping it really fun. I mean, I think people think horror films must be tricky to make, and they might be if they're really gruesome. And, you kind of have to leave it behind when you go home because you're dealing with grisly things all day. But Black Christmas was sort of the opposite. I mean, Bob Clark would sit opposite me. I was in the rocking chair and he would have his foot on the rocker. So he was the one controlling the rocking.
Yeah.
He was the one who threw the cat at me, hoping it would lick my face, which it wouldn't. And of course, we sprayed my face with catnip. And he was the one who would say, "Okay, well, we've got that shot. Lynn, we're at cruise breaking for an hour, and we'll bring you something with a straw." He was really fun. He made the whole thing like a party.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
then, this is the man who also made A Christmas Story.
and
This-
Porky's.
and
You know,
Porky's. Wow. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Quite the oeuvre, as they say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Gone way too soon. I think
Yeah.
he'd be up there with Del Toro now. Making
Yeah.
making good
Yeah. Yeah.
films, and he'd be
Yeah.
way ahead of
Yeah.
his
What a
time.
shame. Taken too soon. Way too soon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would like to talk about the cast a little bit that you work with. You had mentioned Art Hindle, who's a good friend, and you had your first on-screen kiss with Art. Uh,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about Olivia and John Saxon. Did you even connect with John Saxon at all?
I did. I mean, but I did connect really with him later on when we started doing conventions because I was always paired up with John,
Mhm.
and he sort of showed me the ropes at my first conventions because I didn't know what I was doing. And he was going, "Oh, you're just going to sign that thing? You're not going to get money for that? Come on, get them to give you some money for that." Anyway, he was really great. And I did a couple of panels with John. So even though we didn't get to work together on the film together and have scenes with one another, we did actually really connect. Olivia was great for me because I had just come off of doing a season at the Stratford Festival in Canada, um, where I was playing Shakespearean roles. And for me to actually be able to sit down with Olivia and ask her about Zeffirelli and the work on Romeo and Juliet, I think it really broke the ice with us because I think she was a bit intimidated coming into the scene. It's always hard to go into a new scene where you're going, I don't really know all these Canadian crew and actors, and we all sort of knew each other. So I was absolutely thrilled and delighted to be in a movie with Juliet, with the Juliet, in my opinion. Um, and I mean, I loved working with Margot Kidder. She was very much a method actress, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
She got into character for real. And Andrea, I think I had known Andrea before we'd done some kind of television crazy stuff together. And she was always delightful. It was a really lovely cast. And everybody, as I said, every day it felt like, because we were all shooting in this house that was in Rosedale that is still there now. And I keep going and revisiting it. But because it was this wonderful big house, everybody would sort of come into the main room and we'd all be sort of just partying, and it was like a Christmas atmosphere the whole time. So, and a lot of time everybody was there at once. All the When you see some of the opening scenes of everybody before the phone call happens, they were all just really there, and Bob was saying, just act like you're having fun. And we were.
Yeah, it shows. I mean, the cast has really good chemistry,
Yeah.
and I think that's the reason
And
people love it.
I gotta do a shout out to Olivia, because I see the film a lot now, because when I go to the screenings, and I watched it recently again from top to bottom, and she gave a really stunning performance in that movie,
Yeah.
and really held that movie together. And I think even now people say to me, how she's kind of Jess is a role model because she's so strong and capable. And even now, when you think we shot the movie in 73, 74, and there was the scene about her choosing to have an abortion, that's like
Yeah.
unbelievable to think of it being in that film that long ago, when even now it's sort of a touchy subject,
Yeah.
one that people actually tiptoe around fairly carefully if it's going to be in a film. And she just blurted right out in that film in 74, "Yeah, I'm going to have an abortion. I don't want this kid. I want to, pursue my career." So she's a real role model to women in 2024. That's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is when I first saw it, I think I was 15, 15 or 16 when I first saw it. And I picked up on the abortion thing. I thought, wow, this is really way ahead of its time with this subject matter. And I'd always thought that she was the killer and she was imagining these phone calls as
Right,
as her aborted baby, getting revenge
right,
on her, with a
right.
guilty
That's
conscience.
very cool.
And I always thought, I think she's the killer. I don't think anybody else can hear these calls. I think she's imagining them.
Oh,
But
that's
then I think one of the other characters picked up the phone, like Margot Kidder, and she heard it. So I thought, well, there goes that theory.
well,
Yeah.
but you should write a little thesis on that, Dominic. I think that's a really cool. Well, but it is, because a lot of people have said to me, "Is the whole thing a dream?
Yeah.
Is the whole thing like, well, nightmare, really? But is it imagined?"
Yeah. Well, that's what's great about the ending.
Yeah.
It leaves you your interpretation, lets you figure out, who was the killer, who you think it was, what happened. It doesn't have to spell everything out for you. So
No,
that's
but
why.
but we will in "It's Me, Billy." the fan sequel. Yeah, and because I said to them, "How can I be in it? Because I'm dead." They said, "Well, we've written a character for you. Now I'm playing Claire's sister Nancy, who's a private investigator. So
Oh,
she gets on the case 50 years later, and no spoilers because it's this is what we do. The case will be solved
okay.
50
Okay.
years later. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's great.
But
Now, we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end, but
yeah,
um, there were two remakes of the original. I believe Claire's sister was in the first remake. Have you seen any of the remakes, or were you offered a
I
cameo?
saw one. I saw one uh, that had sort of the weird fraternity that somehow that I just remember there being a lot of black goo and stuff and weird fraternity stuff.
Yeah.
Um, there, I think so, there was one that I actually thought one of the lead actresses was really good, and I don't know, was that Imogen Poots? I don't know who it was now, but anyway, um, people warned me not to go and see them. They told me, I think you're going to be disappointed. And a lot of people say, the original is the one that holds up. Um, and I kind of want to be faithful to the original and not tarnish my thoughts of Black Christmas with too many remakes.
Yeah.
Um, even still, I was a little, do I really want to do a sequel to it? Do I really want to revisit it in that way? Just because I revisit it so much at conventions and with fans. I mean, this morning I'm still making these for. I'm still sending out a snow globe to somebody today that I'm making and the ornaments and stuff. So I have a great love for that version, and I don't really feel a great desire to spend a lot of time watching the two remakes.
No, no. I will say the first remake that came out, I think it was 2006. If they had called it something else,
Yeah,
it's not a bad film. Like it was directed by Glenn Morgan, who was one of the key
yeah,
writers on the X-Files. Uh,
yeah,
if they'd called it something else, I think it would have been a decent, would have had a little more life to it.
yeah. And I
If they called it
wonder,
Black Christmas.
yeah,
uh,
I don't know why they felt they had to sort of advertise them as some kind of remake
yeah,
because there wasn't a lot of, I mean, apart from it being a sorority house and there's murders taking place, there wasn't a lot of similarities.
yeah. Do you remember, upon its original release, do you remember the first time you saw Black Christmas with a live audience? Who were you with? What was the
This
feeling
was my
like?
mom and my sister. They were both pretty shocked, but they actually had seen me in another film called The Amateur, where it's about a hostage taking. Uh, um, and there was a real moment in the film where I'm taken out as the hostage and shot in the head, and we really did it very cinema verite. So they were used to see. There's another way I died. Um, but they were used to seeing me, I think, in precarious situations. Of course, my mom, who at that point was my agent, kind of went, "Well, I wish they hadn't killed you so soon." She would have liked me to last longer.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it got. I mean, I thought it got a really good response. I don't think it's anything like the response that it gets now. It has only grown in stature and reputation with age. And I think because it was sort of the first of a genre, I love that Eli Rill called me one of the first victims of all time. And, Olivia is one of the first girls. And
mhm,
so, I mean, that part of it is very exciting to me that it's had this incredible, particularly since the DVD release. It's just been
yeah.
phenomenal the way the film has been embraced and has had a new huge set of fans, a huge fan base.
I mean, that was one positive about the first remake, is that you had younger people that never knew there was an original. You know,
Right,
it
right.
brought, it brought attention back to the original, and
That's
I think
true.
that the first remastered DVD came out in conjunction with the remake. I
Oh,
think they packaged
yeah,
them together, so that was one of the positives that
yeah.
it brought new eyes to the classic. So, and there's a 4K now. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it came out.
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's
Wow.
beautiful. One of my friends actually does audio restoration for films, and
Okay.
he restored the sound in Black Christmas. It sounds. He actually added in sound effects, like certain scenes in the original. When they open doors, there's no sound. He added in door creaks. Yeah,
Oh, I gotta see this.
you'll have to see it. It's Scream Factory. It's a company called Scream Factory.
Oh, okay.
They put out the 4K, and there's actually a little documentary on there with my friend Brett, and he's talking about the sound
Oh,
restoration.
cool.
So he added all these different things. It was like it looks amazing. It sounds amazing. So I was,
Wow.
they should have sent you a copy. You think they would?
They should have. I'll tell them they should. You can
Yeah,
tell
I'll throw a line out.
them.
Um, well, yeah,
Yeah,
Black Christmas will live on forever for sure.
I
Uh,
think it will. I think it
yeah.
will. And I love that some people come up to me and say they watch it on their wedding anniversary every year.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I say, were you married on Christmas? No. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But it has that place in their hearts. Um,
You know. I mean, I watch it every Christmas, but that makes
oh
sense.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. Well, I tend to watch it a lot, uh, which is fine. I mean, I'm always discovering new things in it. There was one screening of it somewhere where they showed it on an IMAX screen, and that was like amazing. And they didn't have a place for they wanted me to bring me in at the before it started, so I sat like right in the front row with this huge IMAX screen.
Oh,
I
geez.
saw all kinds of things I hadn't noticed before.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a beautifully made film. That's for sure.
That's well, I'm very proud to have been a part of it. And for, Bob, who took me aside one day towards the end of filming and said, I want to show you like what our publicity campaign is. And he showed me a copy of the poster, the original one with the wreath and me sitting there in a plastic bag. And I said, hey, if you're going to have your picture on a poster, it might be nice to have maybe a little more flattering one, but in the long run, it's paid off, 1,000 million fold.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. And the original title was Silent Night, Bloody Night. Was that the original?
That was the title when on a U.S. release. It
Okay.
was always called Black Christmas here, but I think I don't know why. I think they thought in the U.S. it would be confused with White Christmas, which I have been to some screenings where that is shown as a double bill.
Yeah. Oh,
White Christmas and Black Christmas.
I think that had come out just around the time of Blackula and
Oh, yeah.
Black Caesar and all these black exploitations, and I think they thought
They thought it
they
might,
would think it's a
yeah,
black film,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
That's
So
true.
yeah, very cool. Well, we should move on to another popular horror film that you did called Curtains.
Yeah.
I love this film. It always struck me as a very European feel, because the atmosphere and the way it was shot. It's just a beautiful kind of an art house meets horror film.
Yep. Yep.
What are your memories on Curtains?
Um,
The first getting connected.
I had a wonderful time, and when you're speaking of it having that art house feel, I think that was because of the original director, Richard Chupka, who really had and came from that kind of background and was a real kind of burgeoning auteur. I really loved working with him. I know there were problems, production and with whatever Richard's idea of what he wanted the film to be and what the production company wanted the film to be. And I think they were more interested in seeing kind of a slasher movie rather than an art film. And that wasn't what Richard wanted it to be, which is why he eventually took his name off the film, and they put uh, John Jonathan Stryker, who's actually the director's name and the film director, or anyway. Um, so there were some complications because we didn't, we shot the original and uh, in the original shooting schedule, and then we came back I don't know, nearly 9 months to 6 months later to shoot a new ending, a lot of new stuff. I mean, I think, no spoilers, but when from the time, um, from the time it switches to Sandy Caribe in the prop house, pretty much all the rest of it is new. There was a different ending that I had. Uh, um, and there was certainly not the scene between Samantha Egger and me. So there was a lot of reshoots, and it just sort of stagnated for a while, that film. And then I think, I mean, originally it came out in a terrible kind of bootleg version with other films.
Mhm.
And then they remastered it and did this again, a beautiful, beautiful remaster of that film
Yeah.
because it was so dark and dirty, the original print, um, that it began to catch attention again, which was really nice. I mean, a lot of really fun actors, some of them still my friends. Leslie Donaldson is still really a dear friend. And um, so it was problematic, but I didn't see it that way. I I felt it challenging because I'd never done comedy before. I was a very serious actress. So my favorite scene was the scene on the stairs with John Vernon. But having to do like the stand-up comedy act in a real comedy club and having to just be like funny and wisecracking, period, was a bit of a challenge. Anyway, I didn't pursue stand-up after that at all. But I do like doing comedy now.
Yeah.
I mean, now that you can be a funny old lady and people will excuse all sorts of pranks from you. But yeah, I really enjoyed the whole process of making of it. I was very impressed with just watching Richard's camera work and the way he was evolving it, and it was really quite beautiful to watch
Mhm.
him in motion. So initially I was disappointed that it didn't do very well. Um, but now, all is forgotten and forgiven. Richard and I still sort of Facebook together, and I think he's proud of it. He's proud that I'm, at least getting out there and talking about it and, publicizing it and getting people to watch it. So, yeah, I think now, I mean, that remake made us all look so beautiful when we just looked horrible before.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was always attached to the poster. I thought it had a great poster.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it
yeah,
looks like a very weird film. When you
yeah,
look, it looks like an art house film when you look at the poster.
yeah.
And
And
then,
I just love the idea of whatever six actresses being up for the same part, and one of them will kill to get it. It was just
yeah,
like my life.
yeah, 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 right, right. Now, I don't think
But
we
I
should
got the
worry.
lead, and I made it till the last reel.
You
Yay!
did, you did. Now, I don't think we should worry about spoilers because I mean, Christ, the movie's like 40 some years old now, right?
I know.
Um, so you're the killer in the film. Your character. Did you perform all the scenes as the killer, or did you have a stunt person? Like, did you wear the mask
I
for
had
every
a stunt
scene?
person.
You did.
I can't skate, to be honest, and I never ever wore that hag mask myself. Someone else did all of that, thank goodness.
Mhm.
But I love to take credit for it. I love people that people think that's me. They love to, I sign that photograph and as if it's me. Um, because it's pretty gruesome. I wish I'd actually, now in hindsight, when you go, God, I wish I'd kept that mask. God, I wish I'd kept that doll. I mean,
Yeah, that would have been great.
imagine what they'd be worth. Although I do have someone that I know who is actually uh, producing the mask now and it's fabulous. It's probably even better than in the original mask if you so want to have one
I
at
mean,
any point.
it is very creepy. It was a
It's
creepy
very
looking mask.
creepy.
I'd
It's
like to
very
know what
creepy.
they based it off of. And I've always wondered, like, what whether it's supposed to be like a an aging actress. Every actress has worst dream, or
Yeah, I think the crone. Yeah, the and why, if we get into the psychology of it, why Patty decides to choose that to disguise her identity is very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of really good psychological stuff you could get deep and dig into in that film. Um, because a lot of people think it's sort of, well, I mean, let's be honest, there are some holes in it for sure that you're going, wait a minute, what just happened now? And who's that guy in the jacuzzi who turns out to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, the troubled production kind of explains that.
yeah,
They were trying to, they did the best they could with it and patched it together and put it out. But
yeah.
it's one of my favorite films. I think it's a great
Oh,
looking
well, that's
film.
so cool that
Yeah,
you
and
say that.
they just released a really cool looking vinyl soundtrack to it as well.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. And it was really fun because when they did the Blu-ray version, they brought Leslie Donaldson and I to New York to watch it and do the commentary. And I mean, there was so much that we didn't remember from it. And we were watching it, and we just kept saying, "Oh, we look so beautiful." But then I said, "Oh my God, I forgot that my mom was in this movie." My mom always tried to kind of get into little parts in movies that I was making because she would read the script and she'd say, "Well, I could play the I could play one of those anyway." But that's my contest for people. Whenever I go out and see the film afterwards, I offer them. I will definitely. You win a free ornament if you can guess which character in the movie is my mother, and they always get it wrong.
Wow.
Always.
That's cool. That's
Just
cool.
because I have curly hair, and so they think it should be the curly hair, but it's not anyway. So yeah, but that's was really like eye-opening when we were looking at each other, and Leslie was saying, "Oh my God, that's your mom." I went, "Yeah,
How
yeah."
fun. How
She
fun.
worked her way into a lot of little parts that I was in.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fun. That's fun. Well, you worked with some really great actors on Curtains. We mentioned John Vernon, uh,
yeah.
classic character actor, and he seemed funny. Every role that I seemed like he had a great sense of humor, and he seemed like did he have a good witty sense of humor on set?
He was really in character. He was very intimidating.
Yeah.
He was always intimidating. I was kind of scared, which worked really well for the character. But yeah, and the same is true of Samantha. She was always in character
Hmm.
too. So, the rest of us would be kind of, yucking it up and having fun and over lunch, and they would be sort of off by themselves. And we kind of, it's sort of like having, the headmaster and headmistress off there, and you kind of had to behave yourself, and really, because I was a huge fan of Samantha Eggers from, seeing what The Collector being was one of my favorite films.
You too.
And so I found her, I mean, it was nice that I actually got to come back and work with her again, and when we did pickup stuff, because initially I was very shy of her, and and she was really in the character, and kind of, those we were just the young things just want to have anything to do with us young girls, so pretty and so with so much potential.
She was, yeah, no, she was great in David Cronenberg's The Brood.
Yeah,
She had a crazy scene in that, crazy role in
yeah,
that. But yeah, great actress.
yeah, yeah.
Very cool. I guess we'll look for there should be a 4K coming out soon of Curtains, from what I've heard.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah,
even an even more polished version could be coming.
yeah, yeah, that'd be great.
Keep an eye on that. Well, we should step away from the horror genre for a second. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned it earlier, Strange Brew, um, sort of a classic Canadian comedy film who has legs in the U.S. now too. People love it here. Um, Rick Moranis directed this one. Uh,
Well, Dave and Rick
Dave and Rick co-directed it.
co-directed. Yeah.
Did you feel like Rick was an actor's director? Did you feel a difference being directed by an actor?
um, I think what I mostly had to do Dominic was trying to keep a straight face
Yeah. Yeah.
because they were, I mean, their directing style was a bit like, being directed by Bob and Doug. Um, and they were very hands off, they were just like, what, okay. I mean, I think the whole thing was sort of um, so new and alarming that MGM was putting money behind this movie and they were getting to direct it and they had all these toys and know uh, I think we were all just a bit like gobsmacked by the fact that we were making this hysterical movie. And just as a sidebar, uh, I ended up marrying the director of photography, Stephen Poster, and that was what predicated my move to Los Angeles. So there was that sort of backstory happening there too. Um, they were really fun. Rick is a little more was a little more shy than Dave.
Mhm.
Um, I think they really had embraced those characters as brothers and kind of felt like brothers. Kind of felt like that being directed by them. It was like one would say one thing and the other one would say that. Yeah, eh, great. Let's just do it. Okay, go.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
I always wonder how difficult it is for actors who star in a film and direct it. Like that's got to be a daunting job, you know.
I don't know how they do it.
An actor can star in a film and direct it. Just seems like, you know, endless work.
Yeah, I mean, and I know there's several, what we're talking about Bradley Cooper right now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, I guess, sometimes if you have the vision and I can't even imagine who they would have um chosen to direct Strange Brew if it hadn't been the guys.
Maybe Bob Clark,
Um yeah,
you know.
true. I mean, it's interesting because my husband Sean did Wayne's World, directed by Penelope Spheris.
Mm-hmm.
There's an odd choice for
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for Wayne's World and for Mike and Dana. But yeah, yeah, it's I think they might have enjoyed directing that movie themselves, Mike and Dana. But I guess I think it's very hard to actually um, get a green light to do that,
Sure. Yeah.
especially if you've written the script, you're the main producer, you're going to direct it, and you're going to star in it. Wow.
Yeah. And I guess a producer would say one of those roles is going to be lacking because you're doing too much. Um, but
Yeah,
I guess you get to a
yeah,
point where you're
and
like,
yet
"Yeah,
other
good. You can
other
sleep."
people, I think when I see them and they have been successful at it, I think they're just like genius. They
Sure.
can compartmentalize
Yeah.
that much. I
Like
mean, I
Clint
can't
Eastwood.
even imagine like directing and producing something yourself when, as a director, you've got to wear so many hats and be on top of so many different departments. I think that, if you were the one behind trying to raise the money for it too, that would cause you sleepless nights.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever directed?
I have, but stage.
Okay.
Uh, Sean and I have a company called Baby Monster Productions. So we sometimes produce our own work, and we produce the work of a writer who we work with named Katie Lehman, who had written her own version of Alice in Wonderland, which we directed, and a Christmas Carol comedy, which is actually played in Philadelphia this year at the old is it called Hedgerow Theater in
Yes.
Philly? Yeah. Anyway, her Christmas Carol was there, which we originated and was originally given to us, and we did year after year, and then was picked up for a theater in the States, which is great. And the play that Sean and I met on, called The Voice of the Prairie by John Olive, we did at the Old Globe in San Diego. No, talking like 35 years ago or something like that. We went together, but I got I got to direct that again, which was great because it's one of my favorite plays and obviously has great memories for both Sean and I. And we got to do it again in California as sort of directors on that piece. And I direct now. Sean has a solo play that we've taken pretty much everywhere, New York, Toronto, and we did a European tour of it called Baby Red Boots Revenge. And Sean is it's a solo play that was written for Sean. And I direct that. I had seen an archival of it. He's been doing it for years, but then I said, I want you to do it again, and I want to direct it. And so we've took that around. I don't know if he's going to ever let me make him do it again. Now he's been doing it since he was 25 years old. I don't know, but it's a wonderfully written play, a solo play that's basically about a child star who's has a young female partner. They have a comedy duo, but his voice reluctantly changes at 25 and he's relegated to playing stand-up bass in a polka band for eternity.
Oh, very cool.
That's the play.
That's fun.
That's the play. And then we've been working on this new play, Slaughter Brothers Dime Circus, which we finally got up and performed live after being sort of pandemic postponed for 12 or 15 months. And Sean wrote this great part for himself. It's about a very circus that's been together forever and ever, and then it now is sort of struggling along, and strange things and metamorphoses are happening within it, where some of the characters are turning into man-eating bugs.
Wow.
And when we were in the pandemic and on hold with it, being able to perform it, Sean turned it into a radio play. So there is a radio version of it that you can find somewhere out there in the ether. But initially he had written me a character that was silent because I was playing a clown. But when we did the radio play, we went,
you have no part.
I have no part. So anyway, we created a language, a Gramalot for the clown, and I am absolutely so delighted that I got to finally bring out my clown. Obviously had been lurking back there for a long time, and now we're talking about trying to do a short film, maybe with her, because now Sean's done his first indie surreal short. I don't know what's it going to be called now. It was called Time Rebuilt. I don't know if it'll be called Stations now, but yeah. So we do a lot of our own independent work as well. So getting to direct is great. I don't know that I feel capable of directing a film, but I certainly love directing theater.
Yeah, well, I think you could do it. I mean, if I always hear, directors always start out directing theater. A lot of them,
Yeah. And I'm so impressed with Greta Gerwig. I think, come on, Greta, if you can do it, we can all do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've loved every one of her films, so I really have great respect for her, and I'm very pleased to see her career just skyrocket. Hey, if you can't act, eventually, I would like to do every job in film. I would like to be costume designer. I've been prop person. I mean, I would even cater. I mean, anything that would get me in the film. I'm already trying to see if I can get myself hired on as an extra in Frankenstein.
That'd be great. That'd be
Yeah.
great. Well, we should talk a little bit about your recent work. You've been playing grandma a lot, and various non-horror Christmas films like Hallmark movies and happy fuzzy Christmas movies. Are these projects you're pursuing? These Christmas films?
These are projects that are paying the rent.
So they're calling you to do.
I mean, I had a great time. I mean, I did two movies. I did a Santa Baby movie and then Santa Baby 2 with Jenny McCarthy. The first one was with George Wendt as Santa. I mean, these are really fun to do, and the Hallmark movies are, fun and fast and dirty. I mean, this year I didn't do, for the first year in a while, I didn't do a Christmas movie. And I don't, I mean, it's never really by choice, but because other things that were, really fascinating. Um, and also because, we were doing everything with self-tape. I mean, for Priscilla, I actually had a pretty bad cold when I did my self-tape, and we do them in our living room, and Sean directs me, and I sort of did a couple of takes, and I said, "That's it, I ain't got no more. Just send it." And I got cast by Sofia Coppola. That's pretty
It's
incredible,
great. Yeah,
you
that's
know. So these films have been, and this is really terrific to see how well it's doing. And the interesting thing is, Jacob Elordi, who plays Elvis, is playing the monster in Frankenstein. So Sean's about to say to him, "Hey, Jacob, I've been shacking up with your grandmother for years."
that's awesome. That's great.
um, and then Adam McGoyan is a wonderful auteur. Oh my God, it's just so wonderful working with him. We did a film called Seven Veils, which is which is based on. Okay, I'm blanking. Based on the opera, yes, Salome. Thank you.
Okay.
Um, and um, it was wonderful. I mean, I'm playing a lot of parts that have dementia, so I'm now that's like my special skill is to play dementia. I've done a lot of studying on it anyway. Um, but yeah, that was a terrific shoot. I loved working with Adam, and
Is that film out
he,
yet? Seven Veils? Is that available to
pardon
watch?
me.
Is that film available to watch anywhere now? Seven Veils?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it really is kind of an art house film. I'm sort of waiting with bated breath to see if it's going to have any kind of wide release. I think you can watch it online. Um,
That stars Amanda Seyfried. So,
and I play Amanda Seyfried's mom.
okay.
And she's terrific in it because she plays the director of the opera. And they shot it because Adam was also directing the actual opera at the Canadian Opera Company that last February when we did it. So he was shooting there and using the real opera stars. And then he had built this sort of dysfunctional familial story around this opera. Um, I think it's brilliant. I loved it when I saw it. I mean, I don't know whether it's everybody's cup of tea, but I think it was just visually and the performances by everybody just astonishing
It
film.
sounds like something I'd like. I mean, I was
Yeah,
researching
yeah,
a little bit before
yeah,
the interview, and I couldn't
yeah.
find
Well, I
it.
could definitely let you know when and if I find that it's available, I'll make sure you know that.
Great. Yeah. Hopefully, it gets at least a limited theatrical.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't know why it's sort of not happened yet. I'm not sure why. But that would be something to investigate for
Very
sure.
cool. Very cool. And I did see a film he did called Ghost of Christmas Past. That's what kind of prompted me to say, oh, she's been doing a lot of Christmas movies.
Oh yeah, Ghost of Christmas Past. Somebody asked me about this film the other day and I couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah, I played a fortune teller. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of
Yeah,
holiday films, you recently appeared as Grandma in Eli Roth's horror classic, already a classic,
yeah,
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about being directed by Eli, working with him? Was that a
Oh, he was such a sweet, fun, and young, spirited man. Um, I don't know whether I can go and see Thanksgiving. Have you seen it? I don't know whether I can, but I mean, there's a sense of humor, right, in the horror. One hopes.
I have not
Anyway,
seen it yet, but I definitely want to see it.
yeah. I
I couldn't
mean,
get anybody to go see it with me.
yeah,
So
I know. I can't get my husband to go and see it. It's like, but yeah, I only have a tiny cameo in it, but I was so thrilled to meet him. Um, and he was I mean, it was real. I don't know when they do the DVD. He did an interview with me on that day, say, because he's such a fan of Black Christmas, and he said, you're this final girl, and we need to have I need to do an interview, like right on the set when we were shooting the scene. And I went, okay. And so like Patrick Dempsey and Gina Gershon are going, who is this person? He's like, all of a sudden I'm getting this star treatment when I basically was there to say one line and be in one scene. But he just, that was Eli. He was just like, so I said, Eli, if you're listening, please, you have me back and you can kill me this time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it comes out on Blu-ray on Tuesday, I believe.
Oh, really?
I
Wow.
think it
Yeah.
comes out, yeah. I think it comes out
Now it might be easier to watch it in your own home where you can skip over some of the more grisly parts
yeah.
because
I
I
mean, that
know
doesn't
there's
bother
grisly.
me, but it looks pretty brutal. But
I know for a fact there's some pretty brutal stuff there. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, very cool. I know he is a big
Not for the weak at heart.
no, no, but I know Eli is a big fan of the genre, and I've heard many interviews about him, and it was cool to see, him make an old school slasher type film.
Yeah, yeah. And finally, do his take his little grindhouse trailer and make it into a feature. It's very cool.
Yeah.
The other thing is, everybody tells me that Black Christmas is Quentin Tarantino's favorite Christmas movie as well as Steve Martin. Isn't that funny?
Wow,
You
Steve
hear these
Martin.
things that people say that, and you're like, okay, well, Quentin,
Yeah, right. Give me a
you
call.
can. I would certainly like to work with you, and you can kill me too if you want.
Surely there's a grandma in your film.
I know there's got to be grandmas. Grandmas seem to be sort of more prominent in film lately. I don't know why. It must be because I don't know, we're approaching 2025 or something, and so it's like the older folks are getting, because there's been a lot more work for me. I mean, Sean had been on the Umbrella Academy for 3 years, and before it ended I finally got my little crack at it as a crazy grandma in an electric wheelchair that I had to manipulate all over the set while firing a shotgun.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
sounds, that sounds very
yeah.
a lot
So
of fun.
yeah, they always have you get to do fun things. But yes, and it was directed by Jeremy Webb, who, I don't know if you've been watching The Last of Us,
No, I have
that
not.
series. Oh man, you got to sit down and watch that series. Anyway, Jeremy Webb directs some of the episodes in The Last of Us, and that's been sort of our go-to. We just rewatched the whole thing again because it's pretty brilliant filmmaking.
It's zombies, right? It's a zombie series.
Well, it's the apocalypse, and it's
Okay.
about, a fungus that just, yes, does infect the human race, and they start killing people, but it's so well done. I mean, it sounds like weird, and it was based on a video game or a book,
I know it's very
but
popular. I mean, I know.
yeah, very popular. But between Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, the two that play the leads, I mean, they are brilliant in this, and it's really beautifully done. And as I said, I'm not really a fan of that kind of genre to watch, but I was hooked. I think we've watched the whole series 3 times.
Wow. Wow. And it's still going, right? It's not over yet.
No, it's they're actually just starting to film it again now. They've moved to Vancouver to film it.
Yeah.
Because they were stopped by the pandemic as well. They initially filmed the first episode in Calgary,
Mhm.
Alberta.
Very cool.
Yes, it's just starting up again.
Cool. Well, we had mentioned Seven Veils, and we had mentioned It's Me, Billy. Is there anything else you have coming that you want to mention, that you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, at the moment, what I'm trying to pursue while Sean goes off to work is because I'm a visual artist as well. And so I would like to say, you know, I do have a, a little short video of my visual art. I work in assemblage and collage and painting and found object and natural on raw wood. So I have a little video that I could send off to you at some point to watch. And I have been so busy, I haven't been able to actually work on a lot of my visual art. So I'm saying to Sean, you go off and make your movie with Guillermo del Toro, and I'll stay home and do a little visual art for the moment, for the time being. I worked so hard last year, and everything was um, long hours, grueling, um, lots and lots of words and stuff. So I was really happy when December came around and all I had left to shoot was It's Me, Billy. And I kind of went, wow, I could actually, well, probably I could use a vacation somewhere nice and warm on a beach. But I like to sit in my little corner here is my where I do all my artwork. And so that's really what I'm concentrating on right now. And of course, I've been, it was the season. So it was the time for uh, ornaments and snow globes. I must have made at least 200 this year and sold them. So it's my great little cottage industry. And other than that, I don't have anything like on my horizon right at the moment. There's a lot of stuff that I filmed that will be released this year, a lot of episodics. Um, so there's a lot to look out for on the television machine of me making appearances. I don't know whether some of these are local to us. Children Ruin Everything, Ruby in the Well. There's all these wonderful little series that are being done here.
Mhm.
So other than that, I'm just looking forward to that person giving me that wonderful script where I play a serial killer.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen for sure. And, and where can people find you on social media? I know you're on Instagram. You're very,
I'm
very
on
active on
Instagram.
Facebook.
I'm on Facebook. I am right at this present time building a website, but our joint website, Sean Sullivan, my husband and I,
Baby
Baby
Monster dot
Monster
production.
dot Productions,
Okay, I'll
and you
put
can
that on the
see all the.
screen.
Huh?
I'll edit that in on the bottom of the screen and
Oh, okay, great. Okay, great.
put that in
And
there.
yes, they can always reach me, and if you want ornaments or snow globes or autograph photographs, they're all just sitting here waiting in my living room. And I did send out those ones today that you had.
Awesome.
um, Thank you very much for those, and I sent them off today.
Great.
I even wrote them a letter. I thought that'd be nice. There was just two of them. It was
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
nice little bonus.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Well, we've got Chiller Theater coming up in April. You'll be doing
Yep,
a convention appearance in New Jersey. It should be a big show, and I'm
yep.
sure there's going to be some other conventions coming up in lieu of the 50th anniversary. And um, anything else you want to mention? Any other little side projects?
Hmm.
Not that you really need anything else. I mean, it seems like you
Yeah,
have
I'm
things
pretty.
going
Yeah, I have my hands full with, because I'm a very good hobbyist. If, I was great during the pandemic, even though I was working all the time, but we're never at a loss. And, we're always searching for grant money. We're on to something else right now and writing grants for.
on.
So the Canadian government has been very generous to us. We'll see how long they want to keep being generous. But the interesting thing is always to have the backup of being able to produce your own work as well, and not just wait for things to happen. So it's good, and there'll be a lot of there will be a lot of sightings and probably screenings of It's Me, Billy when it's ready.
Cool. Great. Well, I want to wrap up by asking you a question that I ask everybody, every one of my clients that I talk to.
Uh-oh.
It's a little bit of a mind bender, but it's a fun question. If you could pick any actor to co-star with you in a leading role and any director to direct you, who would you pick? And the caveat, they have to still be alive and it has
Uh-huh.
to be people you've never worked with before.
Okay. Well, the actors, no problem. Anthony Hopkins,
Mhm.
Chris Nolan.
Wow, you had that one ready. Usually
I
folks,
didn't. I didn't. That's just I was going
wow.
like, well, hey, we're watching the Emmys, we're watching the Golden Globes, we're watching. I'm going, and I just watched Anthony Hopkins and The Father. I'd really like to work with Olivia Colman too. So the two of them. But anyway, I mean, I have been a fan of Anthony Hopkins since I don't know when. Um, and you know, if that could happen, if we could play grandma and grandpa together, what a pairing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would just think that would be awesome. I also, he's obviously sadly passed away now, but I was the unofficial sort of fan club creator of the Alan Rickman fan club in California when I lived there. But
Yeah.
he's sadly passed now.
Yeah, he was great. He was great.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
shocked you never got to work with David Cronenberg. You know,
I know. Well, it's not too late. He's
yeah,
still around.
it's true. He's a new
He's
movie in
he's
production.
still he's still around and still, making movies, making good stuff. Yeah, because it is really funny that my one of my best friends is Heidi Von Flesk, who did Dead Ringers,
Yeah.
and we keep talking about, like, come on, David, use Heidi again too, and me, and all that. And Sean has never worked for David Cronenberg. I think Art has, though, hasn't he?
He did The Brood. He was the
Yeah,
lead.
he did The Brood. So yeah, yeah, I love working with Canadian directors too. So anybody that's out there looking for, you know, someone who can still remember lines at 71 years old, I'm your gal.
Yeah. Although I feel like a grandma in a Cronenberg film would probably have like 6 belly buttons and 3 tongues.
Yeah, but that'd be okay with me.
Yeah. Be perfect. Be perfect.
The more eyes and the more belly buttons and tongues, the better.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, it was great chatting with you, Lynn. I learned a lot about you, and I look forward to doing some conventions and having some fun this year. And
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. I'd love to spend more time in your company.
yeah. All right, Lynn. Well, we'll wrap this up, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks.